My friend Susan Long takes me to Lee's class, Lee Strasberg's class in 1973. It was like meeting Einstein, and I immediately knew this is what I want to learn to do.
My guest today is Mauricio Bustamante, a Mexican born actor whose life has been shaped by art. He began his journey in Mexico City in the early 60s, toured the United States in leading theatrical roles, and proudly served the United States in the Vietnam War. After returning home to the United States, he found his true artistic home at the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute, where he studied, performed, and taught for decades. His story is one of discipline, devotion, and the eternal war of art. My guest today is one of my dearest and longest friends, okay? I met Mauricio when I was, I think 22, 3, something like that, like a baby. And Mauricio worked for the Lee Strasberg Institute, and he's an unbelievable acting coach, unbelievable actor. He has been in my life through the stages of my life, almost like, we live life between lives, and you were at like the pinnacle with the movies and the shows and the acting, and you are
Fun.
just one you are just one of the most incredible human beings, and I am so excited to have you here on the show with Calcutta Angelique. Let's get into it.
Thank you so much. We really did begin our friendship with nothing but magic.
Yeah.
We met because you were casting a Sarina song, and that was the most beautiful experience with such gorgeous people. And then we did I Like Crazy, and so we were playing at what we love the most. How much more fun does it get?
Oh my God. It's so funny. Serena's song to this day is still one of my absolute favorite projects. Just because when you say magic, that's what it felt like. It
It does.
really felt that way.
It does.
Yeah, with the generosity of both, Margot Kidder and Michael O'Keefe and all of the actors that
Yep.
really came out, every single one from the extras to, supporting.
To this day, I have sweet, sweet friendships on social media with a lot of the actors on set.
Yes, and so many of them went on to do other things that were
Highly
really,
professional
really,
people.
yes, they really went all in. And, you know, um, I remember certain fellas on the crew got into the DGA using that script. Yeah, I'm sorry, through
Well,
that film.
the thing that we were talking about a little bit ago is the kind of commitment that we need in order to make our dreams come true, isn't it? It's a commitment that is 100%. My personal experience is very privileged. The only thing I've never had in my life is money. But otherwise, you cannot find a more privileged person on the face of this earth. And that is the reason I ended up in your film. And that's the reason that I'm in this podcast today. But I grew up in a home where when you said, I want to be an actor, everybody was happy.
Oh, wow.
How often does a child grow up in a home where he says, I want to be an actor or a dancer or a singer or a baseball player and the parents go, yay, bravo, we're right behind everybody. Yeah, but what are you gonna how are you gonna earn your money?
Right? That's it.
Can you
Yeah,
blame How can you
yeah.
blame a family whose child says, I want to be an actor? How can you blame them for worrying?
And it's funny because there's a difference, and we'll get into this, but actors and movie stars are not the same. And it is really, really frustrating. The chances of being a movie star is very, very slim. There's a handful of them if you
Right?
really, really look, right?
The chances of being a working actor are tiny enough, much less being a movie.
Right. And you can work as an actor, sure, right? You can do bit parts, you can go on. I mean, how many we've been on everything. Sex and the City, Law and Order. I
I'm
was
the
in
only actor in New York who's ever been in Law and Order.
You haven't been in Law and Order? What?
I'm going to go in the Guinness Book of Records.
But I like what you said about our dreams because when we initially had this conversation, we were talking about how it isn't always as easy as everyone thinks because we go into it with these bright, big stars in our eyes. And we don't always realize that the art doesn't have one destination, right? The art may have a very different trajectory than you think or that is ironed out. It is not always I break into Hollywood, I get my Academy Award, and here I am a superstar, and everybody who is ever mean to me is going to regret it. That, right? Because how many times have we heard that story,
Yeah,
which is real?
exactly.
And, and that's based on deep psychological need and ego. That's not based on the love of the art.
When I got to high school, the high school teacher was a giant of an educator, okay? And if you were going to be in the drama club, you were going to be going to ballet classes. The teacher taught those free because he needed boys. You were going to be going to a singing class, and you were also going to be going to do the plays at the women's college down the street. You were busy with your craft, and you were falling in love with the original lessons of the actor, which were the traditional lessons: downstage, upstage, my downstage hand, I cross with my upstage foot, all kinds of. But it was giving you a love of something that you knew you wanted to be part of. Then he taught us how to make sets, build sets, so that you would. Some of the children then fell in love with that, not with the acting. So to have had that kind of teacher who later opens up a community theater in Denver, Colorado, so that right after high school, you're in the community theater performing the leads. And then the only professional producer in Denver hires me because of that. And I start my pension, which today pays for my monthly apartment bill.
Wow.
Now, that is winning the lottery.
It is winning the lottery, but it's also where preparation, perseverance, and the willingness to do it. Because there's a lot of folks out there who want the end product, but they don't necessarily want to do the work to get there. And it is a lot of work. And even these actors that you see out there who have been doing this for years and years and years, they work their asses off. They don't get to see their families. They're gone for months and months and months at a time. They're on grueling schedules, brutal. I mean, when you're doing night shoots for weeks on end, that is absolutely taking you onto a completely different rhythm. It's getting you out of your you can't even socialize except
Exactly.
with right
Yep.
with your castmates who then become your family
Yep.
in that amount of time.
You really do. That's so funny because you're with another family. The film group turns into a family, or the play in which you're performing and touring that turns into a family, and then that's all gone at some point.
And it's funny because one of the first times I knew heartbreak was at the end of a play as a child. Yeah, in middle school.
I used to laugh with Gene Simmons, the actress, not the singer. I used to laugh with her about how funny and intelligent our brains and our bodies are. The day the show closes, everybody comes down with a cold.
Yes.
You stay
Yes,
strong.
you
And
do.
your brain knows you can't afford to get sick. You can't afford to get sick. You have 8 shows next week. The show closes a couple of days later. The brain says, I have had it. Bada boom, you catch the cold.
Yeah, and you're out for the count.
So, in terms of commitment, one of the things that I experienced was at about age 27, I was always performing in the professional theater out in the US. A lot of them were dinner theaters. They were equity dinner theaters, and they were being very professionally run. There was no fooling around. You were working with professionals. But my friend Stanley Zareff, who's like my big brother, said, You need to go to acting class. I said, What is
Yeah.
that? Acting class? Don't you read the newspapers? I'm the greatest thing since the paper napkin. I'm the boy wonder. I'm the most charming Spanish import since the olive. You need acting. Okay, so my friend Susan Long takes me to Lee's class, Lee Strasberg's class in 1973. It was like meeting Einstein. And I immediately knew this is what I want to learn to do. Now, the commitment that I'm making a reference to now is I knew I needed to be in those classes no matter what. If I were going to go do a play to earn the money and come back to class, okay, that's what I'm going to do. If I'm going to be in New York in acting class with a temp job so I can be paying my bills, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Because I was lucky in one way. I wanted to be the best actor I could be.
Yeah.
It didn't even occur to me. Of course, I wanted to be a star when I was 22, 23, 24. But a moment came when I thought, me, I want to be the best actor I can be. Now, you're talking about hardworking people. Guess what Marlon Brandon and Al Pacino have in common? Everybody in town knew they were the hardest working actor in the city. That's what you were referring to.
And Marilyn, because Marilyn had that relationship with Lee Strasberg. She wanted so badly to be taken seriously in her craft. And, a lot of people have this misunderstanding, this fundamental misunderstanding of Marilyn Monroe since she's become this sex symbol and this status symbol, which she would be cringing at because that was not how she wanted her legacy to be.
Exact.
Right? You don't go and study with Lee Strasberg and marry Arthur Miller because you want to be some hoity-toity pinup girl. You are right.
Exact.
And to marry a playwright and arguably the most successful playwright of that time, right?
Yeah,
I
serious.
mean, you're not talking about an actress who was just fluff. She was
Was pursuing just glamour. Exact. The work she did with Lee Strasberg was not seen by the public, but put everybody at the studio in shock at how good this work was.
Roberta Wallach. She's
Brilliant.
yes, and um she was I took some acting classes with her back in the day too, and she was phenomenal. Phenomenal. And Marilyn was her babysitter. And when, you hear these stories and you get a different view because we get a more humanized view. That's I have to be honest, when that Blonde movie came out, I cringed and I thought,
Right.
"Oh god." Well, they based it on that book by Joyce Carol Oates, which when I first bought that book cuz I was a Marilyn obsessed. I loved her and the art. I ended up throwing it in the East River. I hated it. And when I saw that they brought it out, I thought, okay, what are they going to do with this? Because it was so far fetched and it really was just her perspective of what Marilyn's life would have been. Why I felt it was dangerous, and, we'll get into this about story,
Yeah.
is because people who don't know the history will assume that this is the history, especially when it is a very well known figure. You
Yep.
can say, oh, this is just fiction. Oh, we're just basing it on this. It doesn't matter. People will assume that it's real. And I have to say, they wasted that girl, Mauricio.
Yep.
That young Anna de Armas could have done. I mean, if you would have given her a real script about Marilyn, and really let her go and get not just the wounded bird, because for fuck's sake, she wasn't a wounded bird. She was a powerhouse woman that
Yep.
was smart. She had all of her stuff, but man, with that actress, she could have done a phenomenal job.
Irma used to tell me about her experience with Marilyn was that she changed. Sometimes you were talking to this woman you were talking about just now, a powerhouse, a woman who could turn the industry upside down. And sometimes you were talking literally to a
A
child.
child. Yeah.
But that's also an artistic temperament.
Right. So true.
That's not something, that's an artist blossoming,
Yeah.
not hiding.
In my opinion, just having been an actor and a director who worked with actors,
Yep.
um, one of the worst things an actor can do is judge a character. Right? Because the minute and I remember we were doing this play and I really wanted to recast this fella and, the EP's like, "Why? He's this and his uncle is this." I was like, "I really don't care." You know, he's judging the character and he's mocking the character. And if you mock a character and you can't find a pain point in a character, then this is all going to fall flat. This actor is not going to do this play justice. And we went back and forth for a while until I dragged him to go see the actor I wanted him to be replaced by. Okay. And I said, listen, just hear me out. Come see this guy with me. And if you don't agree, then we'll leave this person that you think. But I'm telling you right now, he's mocking the actor. He's mocking the character. He thinks, he's just a sarcastic jerk. He's not finding the pain point. Well, long story short, at a cast meeting, the EP overheard this guy making fun of the character and referring to him as a sarcastic dick. And he came over to me and he said, "All right, take me to the play." So I took him to the play. He got to see this other guy, and it was like, we didn't even get to act two. He turned around and he's like, "Yes,
You see, I think that if I don't sympathize with the character I'm playing, I can't play the role.
that's right."
Now, there may be once in a blue moon, there may be a character who is doing that to himself. That's
Right.
different.
That's
That's
different.
different. If
Yes.
I'm being sarcastic about me, if I'm putting myself down all the time, if I'm criticizing myself all the time, as a character, okay.
Right.
But to not say, okay, what in my most intimate experience is reflected by this character?
Right.
Because that's what this is going to be about for me. In order to make it truthful to me, I'm looking for the possibility of where is the similarity between him and me?
That's right.
The success, the failure, or the hurt. You see, I have to sympathize with the character.
Anytime I feel an actor really goes all in, when we were doing Serena's song, for example, watching Margot in the spaces, right, where she didn't have any lines, but she was very present and very connected. I remember Chapin turned to me and he said, "Yeah, you understand why she's a movie star." I said, "You do. You 100% do. When you work with people on that level, you 100% get it."
100%. And now I'm walking down the hall with her during the shot, and I go, she feels like my wife. You know, she turns and she says, "Mwah." She gives me a kiss. She feels just like my wife.
Yes, you 2 had a fabulous connection.
She was,
Unbelievable connection.
she completely gave herself to the role.
She did, she did. She was fantastic and so just in it, and I mean, we talk about this all the time because you sent her the original script for Serena's song, and then, of course, she cornered me and yelled at me.
Who was it?
Margot, because, she thought we should be filming that, and she was correct, we should have been. And, that is something I would love to talk about. A lot of times in our industry, when we are new at something, we do not trust our instincts and we listen to everybody around us, right? And
Right.
they may be well meaning, and they really are. And I think in my case, they were well meaning.
They were well being. Yeah, that's what I
Yes.
know. I forget the name of the actor. Magnificent
Michael
Michael.
O'Keefe. Yeah.
Michael. How caring.
He was great. Yeah.
He was so protective. I said, he acts like her father. He's so
Yeah.
protective. So I thought because you know what? They interpreted you as a young filmmaker just blossoming, just coming, and they were both so protective and so respectful and kind. He could not have, neither of them could have been nicer to me. He said, no one warned me that you were going to look more handsome than I in the film.
He Yes.
What a sweet thing to say to an actor.
Yes, and, both of them came with the attitude of, we're here to work and we're here to be, They didn't come in with the attitude that they were superior or, oh, here I am working on a short film. And,
No.
no, they really, and that's the thing I want to say to people, actors specifically,
Yeah.
that w- ego is, you need a little bit of your ego, but that where it tips into narcissism, no.
Your ego needs to be healthy in that you are secure, that you have the capacity to complement everyone on set with your work.
That's right.
That's where your ego comes in. Narcissism is a completely different thing. Now, we are able to deal with that very well because we deal with narcissism in our industry all the time. But it can break or make a production if the person is completely, just unaware that there are others and other elements of the production that count.
Filmmaking is a team sport. And you don't get past go without every single person's involvement, talent, dedication, and perseverance. And you are not the sole spotlight, right? And I always say this: a spotlight casts shadows, and a floodlight fills the room. So we should seek a floodlight, not a spotlight.
What a beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah, especially when we're working together to create this.
I think that's the maturity that the actor needs to experience. Of course, if you are 8 or 9, of course, it's all about you.
Right.
Of course, you want to be seen. And when you're 15 and 16, of course, but as we mature, we need to understand, wait a minute, this is a team sport.
That's right. Yeah.
I have to be a team player with my team partners because this is not just about me, it's about all of us.
Right. And we can't get to where we need to go if we're not all working together.
Right? Now, the mentality that we learned from President Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. The same thing with the production. Ask not what the production can do for you, ask what you can do for the production.
As it pertains to this idea that we have to be something in this world, especially artists, right? Mm. Let's talk a little bit about that because we had a taste of a conversation about, the expectation. Like, you are an artist already, right? There's a success there for the person that is showing up and constantly going out and constantly doing what it is that they dream of. I think we both said that we would have been dead if we went to LA and became like
Successful. I'm not
Yes.
get up in the morning to go to work so we could pay the bills. I don't know. I would have maybe partied myself to death. I always felt New York was a real home for me because I don't know. I thought here the actors were really serious about acting. And but anyway, when I finally ended up in the Strasberg Institute in 1975, that was what the excitement was all about. Was that I was literally learning tools to help me make the transition that I needed to make as an actor. What happens is I grew up entertaining the audience. I grew up being funny with my gesture, being funny with the timing, with the inflection, so that the audience would get a kick out of it. I come to Lee and he explains, we have to work on you enchanting yourself with your choices. You're the one who you do it, you're going to work for you, and the audience will benefit from that. You don't work for them, you work for you. All of a sudden, I'm learning the tools. For instance, as you know, when the curtain goes up, the whole system goes, oh my God, the curtain's up, 1,000 people. No, it's like being in a minor car accident. Oh my God. So the camera is on. What do you think the brain and the neuro blah blah are going to do? Oh my God, we're being photographed. So Lee starts teaching us how to get rid of all that tension during performance so that we can be aware of our impulses, of which we must remain in charge. You don't just start throwing dishes because you're having a temper tantrum. You have a temper tantrum and you remain in charge of your impulses. But all of the inner life can come to the surface because the muscles are not protecting us. All of these lessons began to enchant my brain to where I realized, oh, yes, I can continue practicing being truthful in the imaginary circumstances, not just being a clown to the audience. Clown was not a dirty word to Lee Strasberg. And whenever I did a little something clowning around, and he clowned right back. In other words, he was saying, it's good to be a clown. We don't call that, we don't put that down here. But to learn literally actual tools, how magnificent.
Everything from music to art to absolutely everything is getting infiltrated, dumbed down a little bit, and mediocrity is taken over. There is a lack of understanding at this point in certain generations as to what is considered art and a good performance. And, some of these crafts that people have put their heart and soul into are pretty much being overrun by shenanigans, by antics. And
By lack of attention span.
yes, and while there's a place for everything, right? And I truly believe that there is a sadness that comes with the idea that we've moved away from these beautiful realms of artistic creation and we're going more into a 24-hour pageant of me. Look at me, pick me. How people can outdo each other. They steal each other's content. They, imitate each other. They fight online and they fight for a position that doesn't really exist. When you create art, you create the existence of something. So
Right.
you don't have to fight for anything because you are bringing and then infusing that art with your soul, with your codes, with everything that is you. And that's what I fear as we move on and more AI and all these kinds of things that are taking over. We lose that sense of artistic distinction.
Well, see, I'm working with an actor who is preparing a monologue from Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night. And one of the things that we discovered during the rehearsal of the monologue was, you see, I said, Martin, this was written at a time when the audience had attention span.
Right.
Today, this is endless to an audience because the play that we're rehearsing would have lasted 3 hours
Yeah.
and there is no action. It's all an inner life of this ugly and horrible tragedy. And he is having to understand the kind of time that he can take
Yes.
during the monologue because the audience and the author knew he could take this much time. But that's one of the examples of the transitions we have experienced that you're talking about. Today, bang, 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 bang. I think there's a lot of reform coming.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're pressurized because when we go too far to one side of the polarity spectrum, the Ouroboros eats its tail and we have to come back around. Um,
I know.
yeah, I do think
Right.
that, yeah, it's going to collapse on itself. It will, because it's too much. There's an oversaturation. There's too much. And I don't wanna hurt people's feelings. I think people have something of value to say. I don't think that just movie stars and actors should have a voice, especially since we know that corporations tend to puppet some of those voices and that's not really truly coming from the heart. I kinda like the idea that the average person can get up on YouTube or wherever and go out and speak and act and
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that is a beautiful thing. Um
Absolutely.
where I get lost is when it becomes just sheer stupidity for stupidity's sake and then people don't they idolize these things that are just, maybe not for everybody's highest good, you know?
Right, right, right. Yeah, vulgar,
Yeah,
mindless. It doesn't touch. It doesn't invite humanity to grow in any way.
that's it. That's it. And that I sometimes feel is by design, right? because
Yeah,
the more you keep people ignorant, the more you keep people in fear, the more you keep people distracted, right? The less they're going to pay attention to everything and, you know, everyone around them that they should be paying attention to.
but what we're talking about is how that diminishes our love of art
Correct.
and creativity,
Yes.
because art is something that you want to be able to relish, invest your time and your attention, whether it's a painting, whether it's a piece of music, whether it's the theater. We want to go to the theater. Today, it's possible that we just want to go to the theater to be entertained, not to gain an insight into humanity, not to gain an insight into this or that subject, which the theater can do so beautifully.
Yes.
It helps us to understand ourselves better. Of course, it should be entertaining, but the substance that we should expect of the theater, that's what I fear is, being flushed down the toilet.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because the humanity part is the key. We learn about ourselves through all different mediums, right? Which is essentially what you said. One of the movies that I do love, that Pixar movie Soul, when you see them going up to the ether and they're getting their inspiration from the spirit world, and then, it's okay. So that's pretty much how it works, right? We tap into the ether, we envision something, and then we bring it to life. What's cool is 15,000 people can have the same vision, and they do. That's why there's no such thing as an original thing, right?
Right.
But they infuse their soul into that work. And if you believe that we're all one of one consciousness, then where art becomes super important is that if we allow all these perspectives to infuse their soul into these creations, we get to learn about ourselves through their creations, and they get to learn about themselves through ours. If technology takes over and technology is all there is, and we're learning everything we need to know about life, love, whatever, through that, through a robotic perspective, through a programmed perspective that is a different kind of programming than consciousness programming, we lose that connection to humanity.
Yeah, because you see, what's coming to my mind is, you mean I wouldn't have learned my life lessons from my grandmother, from my uncle, from my parents? That's not that that's not the loving way in which I'm going to learn that I should understand that whatever I decide to do with my life, I gotta try to be the best I can be at it. Whether I'm gonna make tacos or whether I'm gonna build buildings, I'm gonna build the best buildings I can build. I'm gonna make the best tacos I can make. You know, those beautiful encouragements that you get from family about courage. My grandmother loved that story of two little boys who stole the family plane and they went flying. And when they came back, they said, "We're not afraid of anything." And our grandmother wanted my brother and me to understand that the children should not be afraid of anything. And so on and so the little tiny things, that stay with you and they are such treasures. You mean we're going to learn them from some computer?
Right. I do think AI could support the evolution of humanity. I really believe that.
It has so far to significant degrees.
Yeah, but it really will become contingent upon the consciousness of those who are programming it.
Yes.
If our imagine
So
right, if our imagination is hijacked, then that's where we get stuck.
I have heard I have heard government officials talk about the possibility of having an off switch for AI. That if it starts to become a danger, that there should be a system of turning it off, taking away all its power, and then turning it on again when it's safe.
They all should be sitting down with James Cameron, actually. I mean,
That
James Cameron did Terminator. He's kind of a prophet, right? And Minority Report. When you start to look at some of these sci-fi fantasy movies, I mean,
oh yeah, yeah.
I was telling my brother as a joke the other day. I said, "Well, it's pretty obvious we're living out the Hunger Games. I'm just waiting to see if we go Close Encounters of the Third Kind or Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Which one's going to happen first?" You know?
You know, when I was one day a long time ago, I started to watch The Handmaid's Tale on the telly, and I couldn't. I said, "This is too much like real life."
Yeah, it's disturbing.
I think that the children, I have a great deal of trust in them, a lot of faith in the children, because they're already turning the thing around. Suddenly I realized, you know what? That's what the children need to be as patient with us because we have gone and done what we have done. And now they need to come and,
Fix it.
and straighten everything out.
And they're good, I'll tell you, especially Gen Z. I'm very impressed with Gen Z because even while yeah, okay, there's a lot of vapid self-serving, look at me, okay, that's everywhere. But man, when you hear these kids talk sometimes and you hear them going up against government officials, you hear the things that they're saying, they are not afraid. They are 100% in your face. No, that's wrong. That's not. I can, you know,
On target.
I weep.
I discovered the genius children working with them at the Strasberg Institute. You know, I wrote scenes for them to rehearse, for them to learn how to rehearse with a scene partner. And sometimes I would steal the material from like The Odd Couple or something. Or I would make it up, little tiny moral stories about uh, children. Well, they explained to me that the scenes I wrote were lame. These were 8-year-old children. I said, well, what we're going to need to do then is you guys, who in here can write us a good scene? Me. Okay, then that's what we're going to need to do. We need to get good material in here. So you start writing this stuff, and the next thing you know, we are rehearsing the plays that they wrote.
Wow.
You see, now
And that's
they
Gen
come,
Alpha. That's my son's generation.
yes, and they are ready to go to work. They come in telling me, she's going to be the sister. She's going to be the mother. I'm going to be the aunt. We know the improv. We're going first. They're going. All I have to do is just sit down and obey. I know we're gonna start with a game they taught me, which is museum. Everybody is posing and everything, and the cop is looking. Museum is the thing that gets us started. Now they decide what we do next. Improvs, my lame, ridiculous scenes, the good stuff they wrote, or at the very, very end, Shakespeare because it's the easiest.
Oh my god, I love it.
Now, if you don't get in these children's way, they're going to pursue an education. A little girl, 6 years old, because she came from a brilliant family, terrified of the big words in the script. Another girl, completely different background, completely different type of child, takes her under her wing. And in 3 weeks, the little girl is screaming, bloody murder. I'm not afraid of any big words anymore. Her friend in class had taught her how to deal with the big words. They help each other. The little boy comes and tells me, he's not letting me do this. He's not letting me do that. I said, I'm not the director. You have to talk to the director. And I learned from somebody very brilliant that children hear the word no 80 something times before they hear the word yes. And they learn through yes, not through no. So one day they come in and they say, we need all the lights out in the theater. I said, oh, no, no, no. Yes, we know, no, but we worked so hard. I go, Mauricio, you're doing it. You're telling them no. I said, okay, I'm sorry, guys. Excellent. Let me know when we need to turn on the lights out. We go to the blackout. Every child has a gorgeous little contraption with light, and they do a whole improv in the dark with light that they had prepared for the teacher outside of class in advance last week, because this week they all brought their little prop and they wanted to show the teacher, and the teacher saying no. You see what I mean? So I realized the genius of these people and the children who have no idea what color they are. You
Yes.
take a black child and a white child, and you ask them, "What is the difference?" She likes cornflakes. I like Cheerios. She likes Disney. I like the other. I don't like France. Love Spain. Nobody says I'm black. She's white.
I actually believe it with these kids. I see it in my son's friends as well. And even him, very empathetic and communicates very well as to how he's
How
feeling.
lucky.
Yeah, and I always said to him, we worked on that, use your words, talk about your feelings. It's okay to cry, all these things. I'm not into the
Right.
toxic masculinity thing. It's not my jam. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think we'd have more solid, grounded men that were really, really strong if we allowed them to just feel their emotions, teach
Yes.
them how to deal with their emotions, just the way we all have to learn. And
Well, the thing about it is, it's ridiculous to tell a boy that it's not okay to cry.
right, it's stupid.
What?
Crying is absolutely cathartic. It's part of the system. It's how the system deals with eliminating toxins. And then you sit there and they wonder why everybody's got anxiety up the wazoo. Well, you have anxiety up the wazoo because you have all these repressed feelings that don't come
Hmm.
out, outside of other things as well. But it does contribute to it. If you're never allowed to emote and you always have to be a certain way and you can't live truthfully,
Yep.
but these kids are a different ilk. You're absolutely right. They have a different sense of confidence and a different sense of grounding.
Regardless of politics, the young people have spoken, for instance, in the city of New York. We're not going that way anymore. We've taken that road so many times, and look where we are. We can't afford anything. We can't afford the idea of having children, having an apartment. We're not going that way anymore.
Yeah.
They've already made a gigantic change. And you see, that's an example of what I think the young people are going to have to do for the rest of the next few generations.
Yeah, no, they're gonna have to lead the way because I don't want to say we were grew up in a different timeline, but we kind of did. We grew up in a very different really different experience. It almost feels like we grew up in an alternate reality.
Darling, I never heard of marijuana. Working in a nightclub in Denver, Colorado in 1969, I had never heard of marijuana. I was in the US Army because of the Vietnam War. I get sent to Korea instead of Vietnam because my young brother was already in Vietnam. And in Korea, they said to me, "What are you on?" I go, "Huh? What are you smoking?" I go, "Huh?" They, for the first time at age 22, serving in the US Army, I hear of marijuana and I test it for the first time. Obviously, the soldier who shared the marijuana with me was the ugliest soldier in the division. You can understand that. But we never heard of such. There was a girl in our school who smoked cigarettes. The bad boy, used to drink 3-2 beer. That beer that has half the alcohol. Talk about wild.
See, I never alcohol just and I never went well together. I could never
You're so lucky.
I could
You're
never
so
I could never get past one drink ever without getting a nasty migraine, throwing up, and then I stopped drinking altogether in 2009 because I was like, well, this isn't fun.
Oh,
And
yeah, me too. 25 years ago, I dropped the alcohol completely. You don't know how lucky you are that you don't need that garbage in your system. Now, the other, for instance, in the 50s and the 60s when I was growing up, if you were to see a married couple in their bedroom on TV, each person had a bed. So you see, I remember I this must have been already in the early 80s. I saw Cher on TV wearing a low, low, low cut dress. And I thought, even I thought, how shocking. That's not for Vegas on TV. So you see, in other words, the ambiance in which we grew up did not offer the temptations children go through today.
oh God, it's so true. It's so true. They are adults way before we ever had to be adults.
They're in danger of a lot of crazy stuff right from the beginning.
Man, they get on YouTube and no matter how many times you do parental controls and you do YouTube kids and everything, these kids end up seeing things that they shouldn't see, and they're being traumatized over and over again by design in a
Yeah.
weird way, right? Because when we traumatize people, we keep them down, we keep them stuck in fear. They're never going to go for it. They're in procrastination. They get stuck and they start to believe that, the world is going to hurt them. They have to be safe. They have to be comfortable. And let's be honest, Mauricio, to wrap this all back to the original point, there's nothing, you will not make it anywhere you want to go if you play it safe.
Exactly.
You've gotta have that confidence, you've gotta know, and you can't be afraid. Fear is that it's a great motivator, but it is also a great detriment to our journey if we allow it to suffocate us.
Fear. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's easier said than done for some of us.
Yes.
But for many of us, darling, my neighbor was told by his mother when he was a young boy, too bad your cousin died and you had to live. That's called soul murder. The
Yes.
psychiatrist calls that soul murder. What can you expect of that young person to do with their life? Heard her mother say to the father, why are our children so stupid? What can you expect that young person to be able to accomplish with their life?
And that's where I wanna help people in a different way because I had those people. Why you're never gonna be this. Sorry, your dreams didn't come true. We black sheep of the family. But if you hold on to those names and you hold on to those things and they become your identity, then you're 100% right. Where do you go when you now identify with being this label that somebody, at a very young age told you or said to you, or something horrific that you witnessed, right? That paralyzes you. But the beautiful thing about the brain and the human machine, and if there's anything that I could give to any other human, is I was that person that should have been had nothing, should have been gone, should have not been doing any of what I'm doing because I had that programming. I had the you're not good enough. Why you? You're not going to make it. You're ugly. You're this, you're that, all of it. Okay. And I didn't just have it from, I had it from people that were supposed to love me. When you really get in and do that shadow work and you start to realize that you are the master of your destiny, you are the writer, director, and producer of your story, and none of these MFers have a right or power over you unless you let them. You rewire that brain. And it takes 3 months of consistent, every time something comes up, you come up against it and you really go at it. But once you do it, you are never going to be the same, and you will never walk through another door feeling less than 100% of who you are.
But you see how fortunate the child who can take that step? You see how fortunate the mind that was not completely so broken that it still has the capacity to say, no, I will overcome this.
Yeah.
But I cry for the baby who never could overcome this. And the next thing you know is they're on death row.
That is a sad reality. We like to think this fairy tale everything, right? Where, everybody can be saved and everybody can be helped. But the truth is, we're not naive and we know that you're absolutely right. There are people out there, it's part of their journey, it's part of their experience, but no, they may not come out on the other side. No, they may not have that constitution.
If you've taken their legs and their arms away from them, they're not going to help you to build a house.
And that's where unity consciousness really comes in, Mauricio, is that we really do need to learn to love one another and be there for one another, regardless of what we look like, where we come from, what our culture is, and where we're trying to go. If we know that we can stand together and hold hands and say, no matter what happens, we're in this together, nobody's going to feel alone. Nobody's going to feel less than. This comparison, competition, narcissism, all of this is created. It's a rat race. It keeps you in fear, it keeps you down, and it's all an illusion. None of it's true.
I keep also being grateful that I live in Brooklyn, New York, where all my neighbors are different. There isn't one single human in my building that shares the same background that I do, and that goes for everybody here. The whole town. And we live in a city where we can have Indian food, African food, Mexican food. everything we can have at any time. Listen to the music, visit with your friends. It's so fortunate to have this togetherness, a community. That is something that I think sometimes hurts people. Their lack of contact with other people that are not just like them.
Yes.
You know,
Yes, because it gives them a false perception of what the world is really like. And also,
right?
again, it goes back to art, right? We said that life is imitating art. If you don't get to experience these multiple perspectives, if you don't get to experience different cultures and music and the way they speak, the way they think, the way they love, the way they fight.
And celebrate it.
Yes, because they are part of you. Whether you
Yeah.
want to admit it or not, they are part of you. And
You know the difference in the DNA between my friend from Africa and me is negligible. The
yeah,
difference in the
Well, that's interesting you say that because anybody who's done, DNA testing is I have, we're all from Africa, so get over it.
yes.
Let it go and stop trying to, oh, well, I'm here and I'm that and just stop. We really are we're just such a stupid species sometimes. And it's like just cut the shit. You're
So
no different than anybody else. Just, get
like
over
the
it.
chimpanzee may have a 1% difference in DNA, but my African friend and I are practically identical.
Yes. Yes, that is true. And when people they do these tests and they find out there are all sorts of things. I have a lot of Arab um
Uh-huh.
lineage, right? Especially being Mediterranean, that makes perfect sense,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
Definitely African. When you go through Italians especially, I just think that there's so much lunacy surrounding something that is so simple.
Right.
Right? We are just all one, but humans were somehow designed differently, and there's all these different theories
Well,
on it.
it's a geographical thing more than anything. It's geographical. A lot of it is
Yeah.
because my African friend, the doctor explained to us when he first got here something about his teeth and his eyes. He said there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that in the equatorial Africa, they suffer a lot of the sun all the time, all the time, all the time. Now we moved north, my family does, and we don't need the pigment of the skin anymore and all of that. But it's just so much of it is just geographical.
Yeah, and the idea that humans are tribal and they do have a general distrust of anybody who has a different consciousness than they do.
If we were 50,000 years ago, we'd be terrified all the time because we don't know who's going to come and attack us and eat us, right? But as we learn who lives next door and as we learn, all that fear needs to go. And by the way, that's another thing that I welcome about living in this town. I see people interacting with each other of completely different worlds. That just makes me so happy because then they are at peace.
That's right.
They're not they're not worried. When I first my stepfather in the US was an angel, okay? A real angel of a person. But he was educated to be very racist. He told me things about black people that I knew were wrong. But but now in retrospect, I realize you see how he was educated.
They become their surroundings. And unless somebody really understands, like, wait, no, I'm a sovereign being and I have my own sort of thing, even though we're a unified consciousness, I do understand that I am the person that has to control how I think. I can't let somebody else determine how I think. And that reptilian sort of primitive consciousness it's always being reinforced. The limbic
Yes,
Right, the limbic brain's always being activated in people, which is why, to your point, they are always acting at these really low level sort of primitive states instead of being
right.
like, "Hi guys, we're in 2025. There's nothing chasing us trying to eat us. As a matter of fact, everything on the planet's afraid we're gonna eat it." So
Yes.
right, it's just kinda it changed, but because the programming is always, and they do that through war and famine and all these other things, it keeps you trapped.
I'm right now with you celebrating the successful integration with our neighbors. What you said a moment ago about being exposed to different cultures to understand our neighbor. And guess what? Celebrate their culture by eating food from their country, by dressing a little bit like them, are maybe listening to their music. Not we're not moving there. We're just having fun with it. But it's celebrating each other as opposed to, "Ugh."
We're all in this boat together. And the minute we can stop pointing fingers at each other and realize, hey, the way out of this is if we band together.
That's where I'm very confident about the young people.
Yeah, I think so too because they're definitely more empathetic. And this is where this is what I love about the way evolution actually works is that it corrects itself because nature seeks balance all the time, right? And that is a fact, whether the reptiles want to believe it or not. You know, they do. And so nature will always seek to pull itself not to one side or the other. And yes, the pendulum has to swing to extremes before it comes to a full stop in dead center. And I think these kids are living proof that w- it does correct itself. Consciousness corrects itself.
The young darling Greta, the World
Yes.
Duck, give me a break. That is genius. And no one considers her a fool. Mr. Danny, Greta, these are the young people who are saying, guys, we gotta get it together.
And Mom
We
Danny's also proof that, he's very level headed. He doesn't let anything bother him. He just kind of stays focused on what the task is. This is what I'm here to do. This is not about me. This is not personal. I'm here to do this. I'm here to serve, which,
Yep.
let's be honest, government was technically, I mean, they're civil servants. They were technically supposed to work for the people. It has just become so incredibly corrupt.
Yeah, with money. Now, had I, in my privileged experience of having been everywhere with everyone, if I had seen how much happier the billionaires and the royalty were, I would have thought, okay, no wonder, let's chase the money. But I didn't see that the richer and more privileged the people were, the happier they were. I didn't see that. I'm not taking a victory lap in delighting in the tragic lives of my rich neighbors. I'm not doing that. But that ain't where it's at. I have always paid my way. The other day, I borrowed a couple of $100 from one friend. The other friend threw a fit because I'm borrowing money. Never, I've always paid my way, but I've never had any money. And I still, not delusionally, can tell you and tell anyone who wants to hear about this, you've never met a more privileged person on the face of the earth. First of all, my health. Second of all, a million reasons. It has nothing to do with money, but we have to be responsible. I can't not be responsible because I have a household to uphold, and I can't not be responsible for that.
It's a super complicated world that I feel like we are probably not going to fix in 2 hours traffic. But that being said, we are running out of time. So, my dearest friend, how can people find you? Where are you? How can they get in touch with you, follow you, communicate with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm not very, active that way. And now what I'm looking for is, Mr. Producer, I'm talking to you, sir. We need acting work. That's all I'm wanting to focus on now is just the acting, the acting, the acting. And I've got this beautiful friend whom I've known since she's about 5. She has a new talent agency called the Feral Talent Agency. It opened in Los Angeles, it's on the Hudson. And when they open the office here in New York, then I'll be working with them.
Oh, how
But
nice.
meantime, uh, all I really do is whatever lands on my lap on a silver platter.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds
Does
inviting.
that sound like a good? You think that sounds like a good program? It's been working so far.
It's yes, because you're very fortuitous, my friend.
Silver platter time, fine.
Exactly. Well,
It,
Mauricio, my dear, dear friend, this was really great fun. You have shared so much information with us, not just about the arts, but about life and love and politics and everything that it is to be human. It is such a treat to have you here. And thank you so much for being on Call Cut with Angelique.
Thank you. You don't know how I drove my neighborhood crazy. You would think I was starring in a brand new television show today. Everybody knew this whole building had to get their act together. I was going on at one. I've never been so privileged. I've never been so honored and so privileged. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
You have such beautiful guests. I'm so honored. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm very lucky. I've had some incredible people come on here. Yeah. So far.
It's
And
very
there's
beautiful.
yeah, and they're more. And I love them because they are everyday people. They are out there. They are superstars in their own way and they're making their dreams
Yes,
come
yes,
true.
yes.
Yeah. It's beautiful
And
to see.
your conversation, when you share with us by yourself, it's beautiful insights. It's a glorious tool to invite friends to grow. When I first moved to New York, my friends had a painting on the wall that said, "A friend invites you to grow." And that's what you do with this beautiful podcast.
Oh, I like that. Thank you, my
Yeah.
friend. I'm going to end on that is that we invite you to grow. Thank you so much for joining me on Call Cut with Angelique. New episodes drop every Friday. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. And remember, folks, no matter what life gives you, you must always keep shining.